Reactive training systems.
How we use singles in our training. We'll use singles at 8 RPE followed by some volume work. Follow-up question to that I got is, why would we do that versus periodizing them both? Well, that's a difficult question to answer at the outset. Like, why do you not do it this other way? Well, I mean, there's an infinite number of ways that you could do it, and the way that we decided on doing it is based mostly on a cost benefit. You look at the different possibilities and you decide which one you think is going to work out to be the best. It's not necessarily that this way is right and the other ways are wrong. It's just we feel like this is better than the other ways. So there's some sort of a benefit that's conferred, or some sort of a problem or pitfall that's avoided, and it's often not black and white. It's a matter of degree. So if you would prefer to periodize your singles and your volume work, then you could do that. But one problem that I see with that method is that your ability to maintain the different strength qualities will fluctuate based on how much time you're spending on it. So you can do your volume work, and that might be making you stronger. We found in Project Momentum that for people that were not good at rep work, then actually doing high volume work, high rep work was beneficial for their strength. But if you're not doing any sort of heavier work, then you may have difficulty being able to display that strength. I know Greg Nuckols and some other people have noted that's one of the weaknesses that they see in the current body of science. That one thing that we often do is we'll run a study and compare a high volume group and and a high intensity group, let's say, and the high intensity group will show better strength improvements, but it's not clear how much of that's a real strength improvement versus the high intensity group being better at the skill of lifting heavy weights. So one way to avoid that sort of problem would be to have both groups run a peaking block, and they've talked about starting to do more experiments like that, and I think that would be really cool. One way around it that we've found is that you just have everybody do a single before you get into that volume work, and that changes things pretty dramatically. It doesn't have to be heavy. I mean, it's fairly heavy. It's 93%, but it doesn't have to be a brutally hard single, so it doesn't have to affect your volume that much. There's still individual differences at play, of course. There are always individual differences at play, but having that single done each session is a constant stimulus. It's a constant in your training that you can there are lots of opportunities for you to be able to attempt that single, get better at the skill of executing it, and you improve at that ability over time. Now, if you periodize it, in those latter stages, your volume will absolutely drop. There's no way around it. And that can be okay for a while. Some lifters tend to be more sensitive to those volume drops than others. And then you have the other problem of during these transitional phases, as you transition from one stage into the next, if you're not using any sort of a single, then or any kind of high intensity work, those abilities aren't preserved. So if you've just spent a lot of time doing some low intensity, high volume work, your ability to execute well with heavier weights is going to deteriorate. And I already mentioned the problem of, when you get into the higher intensity phases, your volume is going to drop. So there's that issue. Now, one of the main arguments against this type of approach which is really a concurrent approach, is that it's not periodized, basically, and that it's a concurrent approach, and that tends to work well with novices and not so much with advanced lifters. I think that the tendency to favor periodized approaches in all cases and concurrent training, complex training being something that's mostly for beginners, that's an argument that might hold more water with sports that have more abilities that are contributing to them. So, I mean, even if you take something like sprinting, there's strength, power, endurance. In other sports, you're getting multiple qualities. You're getting energy system qualities, although that's present in sprinting as well, obviously. But the more qualities that you bring into a sport discipline, the more periodization is going to matter, and the more difficult the periodization is going to be. Powerlifting specifically is an incredibly simple sport in that we care about maximum strength, and the thing that the physical quality that provides your base for maximal strength is hypertrophy. So there's two things basically that you have to worry about, and that's not too many to train concurrently. I can tell you that I've had the best success that I've ever had as an athlete and a coach with a concurrent approach. That just means that you're training those things together, and as long as you're paying attention to how they fit together and how much relative time that you're spending on each, I don't see a problem with doing that at all.
Reactive training systems.